This is the 007 Debriefings. I'm Intelligence Officer Wiz.
And I'm Weapons Specialist Zero.
Zero, how you doing this week?
A little miserable, but it's due to some other stuff going on.
Look, man, if you told me that you didn't want to see my nudes, I wouldn't have sent them to you.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
If you would have just told me, like, yo, dude, don't, please. I thought we were friends like that, but apparently not. Wow.
You kidding? It was an IT prank. You're like, hey, I think my hard disk is corrupted, and then bam!
That's a good one. That's some filthy IT humor. I have to appreciate that. All right, so we are here to discuss the cinematic adventures of one James Bond. This week, No Time to Die, the final one for our 007 Debriefing series. My God, Zero. I gotta be honest with you, man. We discussed this before we got on, but I'm actually kind of stunned we didn't stop halfway to take a break, to be completely honest. We've been reviewing one a week for the past 6 months. We started in the beginning of January. We're now at the end of June, and it's over now. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm pretty much with you that had these been very, very terrible movies, I think I probably would have been like, nope, stop, just pull the brakes, just stop. I don't want to do this. Get me off this ride.
Yeah, if we were in the middle of like 2 Moonrakers and 2 A View to a Kills, I think I would have been the same way. But I think that really shows the quality of the Bond films when it comes to this, going through all 25 of them like that, is that, yeah, there are some that are not as good as others, and there are some that are bad, but they are spaced out enough where you're getting mostly quality out of this, and they're good times. It's not like they're super serious or they're high art. It's just that they are just good times in these movies. I really think, if anything, it really cements into my mind why the James Bond movies are so popular and why they withstand the test of time. It's because overall, the way that they are made and the formula that they have really works, and they differentiate them just enough on each movies to be interesting.
Yeah, every director seems to have their own individualistic style. Some of them I kind of jive with, and then there's some that I'm just like, oh no, just no.
No, I absolutely agree. Let's get to our mission objectives. We're going to dissect the film to talk about different elements of the James Bond movies. And let's start with 007, which is James Bond, played by Daniel Craig.
This one is an interesting portrayal. He's supposed to be retired, but also he's a bit more of an emotional Bond, which that in itself is interesting, since for most of the Daniel Craig saga, he's just been a real cold-hearted bastard. It's an interesting portrayal, especially when you find out how high the stakes are. I think it's a very interesting portrayal, but when Bond has to get down and dirty to business, he's just as brutal as ever. It's almost kind of fluid how he can flow between like cold and down to business, and then just when things get super serious, just he can kind of flow into whatever the emotional need for the situation is.
Yeah, it is interesting that this Bond is one thing that I don't even think that he was in the other Bonds as Craig, and that is emotional. And he's incredibly untrusting, and he acts hurt throughout the entire film, like emotionally devastated throughout most of the film, because numerous things happen. He feels like he's betrayed by Madeline. What happens to Felix in the movie? And also having his title taken away from him at a certain point as well in the movie. It really shows this character is much more than just the stereotype that he's been throughout the entire series. And that's interesting. I also have to say as well, the film does a passable job implementing all this, when still comparing it to Casino Royale. I think the arc is complete and it's done well enough. But comparatively, I still have to feel very disappointed by how they ended this character and what they did with it as at the end.
In some ways, just it is interesting to see a very vulnerable Bond for once. It can feel a little bit disjointed in some moments where just the emotions kind of flare up and everything. Also, Bond being kind of clever, he also does use his vulnerability to his advantage, especially towards one of the end fight sequences.
Yeah, no, definitely. There is one thing that we should discuss here. And this is a big spoiler, even though this movie has been out for now 4 years, and I think everyone knows this at this point. The ending.
Oh, yes.
Why did he have to die? That's my question. Because if the redemption arc is for him to die, then I get it. But why have his redemption arc and then have him die?
And it's interesting too, because when the movie came out and it was revealed that Bond would be killed at the end and everything, there are quite a number of notable people that took issue with it. If I remember correctly, I believe one of the book authors actually took quite an issue with it because he was just like, I feel like he could have been retired in a more graceful way. And instead it was just, nope, he just gets blown the fuck up. The end.
My main issue is I don't have a problem with you killing off a character. I honestly don't. But the reason why I have an issue with this is twofold. One, again, he had his redemption arc. He went from cold calculated to untrusting to then finally just settling in and being there for Madeline and saving their daughter and being that paternal person that I think he wanted to be, which healed him. To then go ahead and then kill him. I guess the only thing that you could really do is that, he made the ultimate sacrifice for his daughter. But why? Like, why was that necessary in that? I don't find that to be a necessary ending. Could have easily lived. He could have also said, well, I'm retired now. I'm going to live with Madeline and my daughter. And then he disappears. I would have been just fine with that. Would it have been a satisfying ending? Maybe, maybe not. But I don't...
Yeah, you would have had to change the whole nanobots thing because Bond got infected with that vial full of nanobots programmed to kill specifically Madeline and his daughter.
You could write around that, honestly.
Oh yeah.
You could easily you can easily say that didn't happen, and then you'll be just fine. I just don't understand why the writers thought that it was necessary. Hell, have him live and then run off knowing about the nanobots that would kill them, and then explain to Madeline why he can't be around anymore. Make it that, and make it more just. Make it what a man does in that sense. But to just have him die? I'm one of the ones that don't agree with the ending and don't like it. Especially with the other problem I have is that we know James Bond is going to return. So what was the point of that? Really? Like, what was the point?
It's a bit of a way of resetting it, I guess, was the thought. It was just like, okay, well, how do we, just retire the character? We don't want to do, like, the usual thing of, he goes off into the sunset, it's all great. Several years later, boom, we have a new Bond. My guess is that they were wanting to try to do something much more dramatic, much more significant, and maybe that was the director's thought on the matter was, but yeah, I think that there could have been a little bit more grace in retiring Bond, and I've had a bone to pick with the ending just because, as said, it just feels like, okay, well, we gotta send Bond off with a bang. Oh, I know, great idea, let's blow him the fuck up.
I don't think we meant bang in that way literally, but okay. Yeah, alright. Alright, so let's get into the villain, which is, I'm gonna butcher this name. Lucifer Safin, played by Rami Malek.
Safin is an interesting villain because he makes his appearance as early in things as the early life of Madeline, because he ends up on a mission to assassinate her parents and everything. We don't know it's him until much, much later in one of the scenes where he kind of visits Madeline in person and gives her a little surprise, and she freaks and she's like, get the fuck away from me, and just that's sort of the revelation that he's the big bad that has finally made his appearance. And to that end, it was a kind of clever reveal with tying the continuity into her past. When we get to the end and everything, he almost kind of comes off like as your Saturday morning cartoon megalomaniac villain. He's got this base in an island between the disputed waters of Russia and Japan. I guess for anyone who's into the anime nerd side of things, you'll know what I'm saying, but he comes off like a giant fucking weeb dressed in like a kimono and overcoat. His base is like very Japanese themed, really just drinking into the whole Japanese style culture sort of thing, but at the same time, the base has a lot of Russian folks working in the base, so it's just kind of like, oh boy, we've got Saturday morning villain here, and he's just having one hell of a time. Just going full weeb. Okay, sure, why not?
There's a lot of things that I did not like about this villain. One is, I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of Rami Malek. I don't think he's a good actor. I don't like him as an actor at all. So With that being said, I agree with a lot of the points that you have with the villain. I think he's kind of weird in a way that just doesn't work in this movie. This is supposed to be the ultimate bad guy. This is the guy that's not only after Bond, but killing Spectre as the movie goes on. At no point is there a feeling of intimidation or of him being like incredibly intelligent or anything. He's just strange. He's just weird. And then the connection that he has with Bond and Swann isn't really that compelling. I feel like the beginning scene of the film, it just seems like it was just tacked on there just so there is an attachment there. There's really nothing in there that's resonant that makes it much more palpable in there.
Yeah, that's definitely a fair point too, because on one hand, it's kind of a, yeah, sure, okay, I guess that's how he has a connection to Madeline, and then by the end, it's just kind of like, I'm just trying to revolutionize the world by pulling your loved ones into my world. Now you're entwined into this whole thing. It was just like, really? We're going with that kind of a tenuous connection? Ah, God damn it.
Yeah. Here's the thing that I have with this. Wouldn't it have been a better idea for the end movie for this grouping of films? Wouldn't it have been a better idea to have Blofeld as the villain, as Spectre as the villain in this? Why have this villain here when you have Blofeld? If Blofeld was the villain in this movie, I think this could have worked out a little bit more. But not as the Blofeld that we've had constructed in the previous film. Like a Blofeld that is similar in ways to what Safin is, but to have those trappings of Spectre and Blofeld in there. Do you think this would have been better if this film would have been Blofeld instead of Safin?
I feel that maybe it would have been a little bit easier to tie in Blofeld, since, well, he's kind of an established villain, and you could write kind of like a crazy dramatic sort of escape sequence that he jumps out of Black Marsh prison and just starts wreaking havoc. It's a little bit hard to say.
I just feel that for the villain that is supposed to be the ultimate villain at the end of this 5-film run, I think he's just very weak. I just don't believe him in any sort of way. But again, that also could be because I don't really like Malek at all. So that could be my thing. All right, so let's get into the Bond girl, which is, again, Dr. Madeline Swann, played by Lea Seydoux.
She plays kind of a person that's on the run. You kind of get the anxiety and the fear that she has because, of course, after what happened in the beginning opening scene in Italy and everything, it's pretty much gotten Madeline completely paranoid of the world and everything. Completely understandable on that end. And then when Bond sort of gets involved back in her life again, she ends up kind of trying to be standoffish, but then just, it's like the ice around her heart melts again, and she finally finds the feelings that she has for him and everything. When we get to the end of the movie, we get to a dramatic fall where she just experiences extreme regret that she wishes she had more time. She wishes that she didn't just take the initiative to kind of stay in his life. Now that she has a daughter that will never get to be around her father, it just seems that while she holds a lot of regret in her heart, she also celebrates the life that he had as well too. It's kind of a interesting literary sort of dynamic, but you don't see very much of the development. You kind of have to piece it together, in my opinion.
There are a few issues that I have with this character, and I'm not even going to get into the whole I believe that she fell for Bond or not, that we're past that at this point. She's a very different character now than when she was in Spectre. She's much more meek, much more of a person that is a damsel in distress. So what made her interesting in the last movie is gone. Remember in Spectre, where she shot at a henchman in the movie, saving and helping Bond? In this movie, she was shaking to the core of seeing Blofeld. Complete 180. That just seems a little weird on that end to me. Because she just seems like very doe-like and docile in this. And I think that's a complete 180 as to what her character was in the last movie.
Yeah, that's an excellent point about the inconsistency, too. Because during Spectre, she is able to hold up her own, even if she doesn't have the strength and the training that Bond does. Here we are, just in front of the big bad, and suddenly she loses her nerve.
I just want to say, Seydoux does a good job in the movie. I think she is believable in the role that she's performing. I still just don't buy the character itself. And now that they have now changed the character over to something else entirely, I think this is just a messy character in the end.
I think it is a bit of a shame that they've kind of ruined the continuity of the universe with rewriting her character in this way. It's just kind of like she had her own sort of setup and everything. She shows that she's able to hold her own, and all of a sudden, we're going to turn her into the damsel in distress type, even though she was fully capable and able of shooting one of Blofeld's henchmen to get Bond out of a jam. Why the change?
I think it's a shame because Seydoux is a very good actress, they just underutilized her in this with this character. All right, so let's get into spy action.
There's quite a lot of action, not so much on the spying stuff. When the action sequences happen, just like the last movie, my goodness, they get dramatically crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
The assassination setup over the beginning where just all of Spectre gets murdered by the nanomachines, that was one hell of a scene.
Yeah, that sequence is really good. It's almost worth watching the movie for that sequence alone. Man, like, everything about that sequence is just really well done. And I think one of the things I want to highlight on that is Ana de Armas as Paloma. Like, she is...
Oh, God.
She is so good in that scene. She's funny, she's witty, charming, and she's made to be like a kind of I guess a rookie of sorts, but she holds her own pretty well. She's very believable in the action. And also Lashana Lynch as the 007 replacement. Very good in that scene. Like, everything about that sequence is really good. But it's funny because that's the one thing I'll remember about that movie is that sequence. It is the best thing about this movie. Period.
For me, I just couldn't get enough of just how beautiful she looked. I was like, oh God. Just the dress they put her in, and then of course just her just going around just holding her own in a fight. I was like, oh God, just she's beautiful and she's lethal. Love it.
She's so believable too. That was the thing that shocked me. I was like, wow, she does it really well.
Yeah, and it was kind of fun once everyone was kind of cleared out from the bar. They're just like, let's have a drink before we continue.
I know.
It was just kind of a silly moment. It was just like, after being gassed with what they thought was a bio attack and surviving, I think they deserved that drink.
I know, it was great. Like, everything about it was just really well done. I just wish the rest of the movie was too. But the action in this movie, I think, is the saving grace of this film. I think all the sequences are really well done. From what happened in Italy in the beginning to, even think the end sequence in that base was actually pretty well done as well. I just think the action is just very well done in this on all aspects, but really the Cuba sequence with Ana de Armas, Lashana Lynch, and what happened in Spectre is really the best part about this movie. It is the absolute highlight. For this alone, I would say watch the movie.
It's funny because I think No Time to Die was actually my first exposure to Ana de Armas. I was like, oh my God, who is she? She's just absolutely beautiful. Then I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll have to kind of keep track on what movie she stars in because she played the role very well and she seemed like she was just genuinely having fun with the role as well, too.
Oh, yeah, she was having a blast, you can tell. My one issue with the action in this movie, the tech is incredibly unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unless you tell me that there really are magnets that can float in air while holding somebody together, I'm like, And then the entire weapon of the movie, which is like a virus that can pinpoint someone's DNA and target them specifically, is just like...
Oh, those nanomachines.
Yeah, like, okay. Is that possible? Like,
not really. It's like very, very far out in the future, but it's one of those things that when that was what they were going with, it just kind of made me laugh because if you've played Metal Gear Rising, I'm sure you're familiar with Senator Armstrong, where he's like, nanomachine, son.
Yeah. Oh God, I remember that. Yeah. But overall, I think the best part about this movie is the action, and the action's very good in this movie.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. For anyone who's looking for like spy shenanigans, you're unfortunately not going to find it in this one.
No.
Maybe there are a few scenes, but that's really about it. That would be kind of like my only warning for people. Just don't come into this movie looking for like that Bond sneaking around in like tons of bases, extracting information, exfiltrating with the info, rescuing a hostage that has valuable information. You're just not going to get that in this movie.
All right, so let's get into the theme song and opening credits. And the theme song is No Time to Die, written by Phineas O'Connell and Billie Eilish. Performed by Billie Eilish.
I don't know what it was. This song just was not memorable to me. Even I'm struggling to kind of remember what it sounded like right now.
It is kind of a downer of a song. I think she has a lovely voice. I think she sounds great. But I know younger people really like Billie Eilish. I don't get it. And I think at this point, I'm willing to accept that. And if that is the case, then I'm going to put out there for somebody on the comment section, give me 5 songs I should listen to with Billie Eilish. so I can get why she is so good. Because I don't think this did it for me, but I'm not also going to say, like, oh, she sucks. I'm like, I want to understand what makes her as popular and as good as people say she is. But
I think for me, the problem was I'm a little bit familiar with Billie Eilish. I'm more familiar with her doing like more pop tunes. So like something kind of ballady like this, I was just like, huh, it's interesting. It's just not memorable for me. And then when I was looking up like who performed, I was like, really? Billie Eilish? What?
Oh, okay. So
it kind of shocked me.
So she's more poppy, I guess?
Yeah, she's more of like a pop singer and everything. So that's why for me, I was just like, not exactly the kind of song I expect from her, but just, I guess she did sing it, huh? Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, just for me, I think it was just kind of like the juxtaposition of like the style, because as said, I was just like, I don't know who sings this. And then on trying to just double check and see, I was just like, I'm shocked it's Billie Eilish. I thought it was somebody else.
I guess if it's that different, then I can understand that. I kind of got like a bluesy kind of vibe with it, and I was like, it's okay, I guess. But also that's, okay, the opening credits. I mean, there's a lot of callbacks from previous Bond opening themes. I think the first thing you see are the dots from Dr. No, which I was like, ooh, okay. But then after that, I was like, all right, I guess. It's not that memorable to me either. It's fine.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where it is. It's just like, yeah, it's fine. It's just a bit unfortunate because I'm familiar with Billie Eilish with like doing pop music and stuff like that. But yeah, just kind of a bluesy ballady sort of tune kind of just threw me off. I was just like, wow, that's a little bit weird. Just did not expect that she was the singer, but hey, sure, why not?
I gotta listen to more of her stuff, so if you're in the comments section, give me 5 songs I should listen to so I can familiarize myself with her work. All right, Zero, so conclusion time. What'd you think about No Time to Die?
I think it's a bit of a failure. Mostly, it's just kind of how Safin is just kind of thrown in there. I just don't know what it is. Just, he doesn't kind of fit in, whereas like, if you had the movie about Blofeld, it feels like that would have been sort of a little bit more of a natural fit. Blofeld's sort of an established villain, but I mean, I get it. They're trying to say that Safin was somebody that was wronged by Blofeld's organization, and it's basically him just trying to get revenge for the sake of his family and everything. So it's just like, yeah, sure, I guess I get it to that end, but at the same time, trying to link him to Bond just kind of feels sort of like tacked on, especially by going, I'm basically involved because I was in Madeline's past, and now I'm basically holding part of your family hostage, so I am involved in this whole grand scheme. It just seems just so shoehorned in.
The first time I watched this, I would be 100% with you, but I agree with all points that you're saying. The villain is not great, the Bond girl just doesn't really fit well with this in this as well, and I'm disappointed with how this ends the entire 5-film run. I agree with you on all those ends. I'm going to say mission accomplished on this one. And the only reason why is because I think the action is good enough, I would say really good, to where I found myself still enjoying the movie and having a good time with it. Is it still disappointing end to how this 5-film arc began? Yes. It is incredibly disappointing. But on that end, I still can see myself enjoying this movie for what it is, and that is a kind of Bond formulaic action romp. And I think in that end, it's fun. I actually like it on that end. The action sequences are really good. And I think the supporting characters, Lashana Lynch, Ana de Armas, Jeffrey Wright, I think they're all great in this movie. But that being said, I agree with you on the character end of all of this, that yes, it's very disappointing. But if I pair that with the action, it's still enjoyable. It's way too long, though. 2 hours and 35 minutes? Way too long. Way too long. But I did have a good time watching it. It just wasn't what I wanted from the end that began with Casino Royale, which is not only the best Bond film, but honestly one of the better action films ever made.
Just for me, I think I'm just kind of a little disappointed that, this is sort of how the Bond saga ends, because it started off so well. Loved Casino Royale, and while the opinions seem to be mixed on Quantum of Solace, I personally liked it, but mostly because, I just kind of saw it as a revenge and redemption story for Bond. I know not many feel that way, and that's perfectly fine. I get that it's a bit polarized of an opinion for that one. And then, of course, we get to the third Bond movie, and it's pretty fantastic. And then Spectre we start to see the cracks sort of show up, and then we get to this movie, and it's just kind of like, you guys had a great opportunity to retire Bond in kind of a better and maybe more respectful way, and you decided, oh no, let's just do the literary ultimate sacrifice sort of trope, and we'll just close the saga that way. I just wish that maybe, just maybe, things were a little bit closed out nicer, but you can only wish for so much, I guess.
No, I'm with you. I do think as an ending to this 5-film arc, it's very disappointing. All right, Zero, mission accomplished for me. For you?
Mission failure.
We are split on No Time to Die. Now, if you want my full review on this movie, you can go to my website at IamTheWiz.com. You'll have my full written review right on the site, along with a link to the video that has this review that you've just listened to. Thank you for listening to this review. If you want to know what we're reviewing in the next couple days, you can look on the screen right now to see what's coming up next. If you liked what you heard, go ahead and leave a like on this video. If you want to discuss your opinion on the film or the review itself, please leave a comment. And if you want to hear more, subscribe to the channel. Thank you again for listening. I will talk to you next time.